Many people view the world in terms of East versus West, but the truth has almost always been held that countries tend to dislike their closest neighbors most of all. Well, this may not be true anymore because both Eastern and Western analysts have recently identified a growing rapprochement between China, North Korea, Iran, and Russia. My name is Dr. David Oualaalou, and you are watching Geopolitics in Conflict. Our sponsor for today's show is SavePowerBills.com. Please keep an open mind as you watch this video. Such an alliance will be intriguing to say the least, and geopolitically disturbing in the best of times. In this video, I will dig deeper into the reasons for these countries' newfound united front, their history, and the potential repercussions for an increasingly complex world. As we near the end of 2023, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China are all in rather unique positions. North Korea, a long-time pariah state by the West, has been a client of Russia. The West's sanctions on Russia have backfired in ways Brussels, Washington, Berlin, London, and Paris have not anticipated. At the same time, Moscow has been cozying up to its regional allies. This includes China, which has its own grievances against the US and the UK. Meanwhile, Iran, the most distant of the four nations, is being accused of igniting the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, resulting in, as we speak, the near destruction of Gaza via Israeli reprisal. Western outlets are calling the growing alliance an imperialist partnership. By this, they mean it is not one of defense, but of regional, if not global dominance. North Korea has sought reunification with its democratic southern counterpart since the 1940s. China will soon take over the US as the dominant economic superpower. And finally, Iran, long-term ally of Russia, is destined to play a far greater role on the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East. But there is a problem with framing all of this as some sort of resurgent axis of evil, as the West claim. For example, all of these countries, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and China, have been boogeymen for at least 2 generations. And that isolation has created mutual strategic interests that are both complex and multidimensional.
Energy bills are rising at a historic rate, and there's no end in sight. If you talk to enough people, you'll soon realize nearly everyone's shocked at their recent electricity bills. Some studies reveal energy costs have skyrocketed by as high as 60% in as little as 2 years. This is why tens of thousands are installing this magical little device to help slash their energy bills. This sophisticated gadget stabilizes electrical currents, reduces dirty electricity, and helps protect your appliances and electronics. Simply plug it in to your home's wall outlet to help dramatically lower energy consumption and ultimately help reduce your power bills month after month. Countless 5-star reviews back up the notion that this device is one of the most efficient ways to save money while beating the greedy power companies. But there's more. If you place your order now, you'll also receive 65% off, fast shipping within the US, hassle-free returns, and last but not least, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee. Simply go to don'twastepower.com to take advantage of this limited time deal before they sell out. Once again, that's don'twastepower.com. That's don'twastepower.com. Order now.
The histories of Iran, China, North Korea, and Russia are complex and often shaped by a mix of alliances and disagreements. These intricacies only become more evident when you enhance the scope and consider how each nation has dealt with and been dealt with by the West. For instance, before 1979, Iran was a close ally of the West. At the time, the current Shah's government was seen as a bulwark against Soviet expansion in the Middle East. But after the establishment of the new Islamic Republic of Iran, the country became deeply suspicious of both the US and the Soviet Union. In recent years, Iran has strengthened its ties with Russia and China, particularly as it has faced sanctions from Western countries over its nuclear program. Upon the formation of the People's Republic of China in 1949, China and the Soviet Union were staunch allies. However, relations between the two deteriorated in the late 1950s and the 1960s, leading to border conflicts and the complete breakdown of the alliance. Ties between the two have remained frosty into the 1990s, and as both countries' grievances with the United States grew more bitter, they found themselves more closely aligned than ever. Next, you have North Korea. During the Korean War and throughout most of the Cold War, North Korea was supported by both the Soviet Union and China. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, North Korea lost one of its major allies and became increasingly isolated. China, however, continues to provide economic support to the ruling dynasty and often acted as a mediator in international affairs. After the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, a freshly democratized Russia initially sought closer ties with the previous adversaries in the West. However, the more NATO expanded, the more relations turned sour. Under President Vladimir Putin, Russia has reasserted its influence and often stood at odds against Western policies, particularly in regard to conflicts in the Middle East. After the beginning of the war in Ukraine led to harsh economic sanctions, Russia began deepening its strategic partnership with China, while also reaching out to Iran and North Korea for weapons and ammo. In fact, reports indicate that North Korea, responsible for supplying Russia's Wagner mercenaries. Then in April of this year, Russia threw its hat into the Korean peninsula in a big way by threatening to give North Korea advanced weapons if South Korea sent military aid to Ukraine. This sort of historical analysis reveals that most of the alliances to spring up east of the Balkan Peninsula have been reactionary. And while that may not afford concern Western powers any extra sleep at night, policymakers might want to consider it before condemning the new Big Four as some sort of homegrown evil empire. Of course, the big question remains: what are the motives for these strengthening alliances? Moreover, how will they affect the current geopolitical landscape? In Russia's case, it seems that Putin is dead set on pushing back against NATO's expansion to his country's doorsteps. After meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un face-to-face in September, Putin openly accused the West of breaking down the system of financial relations. He also spoke of a renewed Eastern alliance to combat Western economic, military, and social threats, including the current global dominance of the US dollar. Putin's comments came out of the Eastern Economic Forum, which was held in Vladivostok, Russia. Other keynote speakers and attendees noted that there were debates on topics ranging from the concept of civilization state as applied to China, Russia, India, and Iran, to the establishment of a better transport infrastructure between Russia and China. The attendees also talked about establishing an alternative international and monetary financial system that might help the bloc do away with so-called toxic currencies. Simply put, the Eastern Economic Forum was all of these nations showing their hands. China's Xi Jinping made it clear that his vision for the new Silk Road could potentially now include North Korea, as evidenced by the personal appearance of Kim Jong-un. Russia, meanwhile, echoed its desire for what it called peace on the Korean Peninsula, mostly due to its interest in Syria, Iran, and the Donbas region. The message was that if North Korea could avoid causing too much trouble, China and Russia will remain its staunch allies against Western hegemony. Countries like Russia, Iran, China, and to a lesser extent India are economically, geographically, and militarily powerful. Yet, they see themselves as playing second fiddle on the global stage, subject to every whim from the US and the UK. They are unclear of the West's agenda, yet are expected to bow to it without question. Regardless of what you feel about these countries and their policies, they do represent several billion people whose lives could be improved through new economic cooperation and the expansion of Eastern influence. With the West essentially writing their interests off, who can truly blame them for seeking to do their own thing? Of course, opinions must consider exactly what it is the countries wants to do. Iran has not been shy about wanting to dominate the Middle East. Russia has been pretty clear about similar intentions in Eastern Europe. Meanwhile, China has its sights on reunification with Taiwan, preferably by peaceful means. North Korea, however, is the true wild card in the scenario. Though it almost certainly wants to take back the South, reality suggests otherwise. However it plays out, there will be undoubtedly huge global implications. The West has established allies and throughout Asia and Eastern Europe, but regional powers have much more immediate influence and working together the means to do as they wish. If they were to succeed in creating their own monetary and financial system, they could also find a new form of immunity to sanctions. As a result, making open conflicts with the West the only real option when disagreements arise. This will put a lot of strain on international alliances on both sides, and it's clear for now the East is far more unified. That said, this alliance is already something most global analysts would not have predicted a decade ago. Given the country's histories, they would have seemed more likely to go to war rather than partner up. As with everything else in this geopolitical game of chess, it is hard to know what to do until someone, anyone, makes the first move. Until then, we watch and we wait. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please share your insights, questions, and comments on this intriguing geopolitical puzzle. And as always, we ask you to try to keep things civil so that we can have an informed discussion that benefits all of us. Also, please like, share, and subscribe for more comprehensive and balanced political analysis on today's biggest issues. Thank you.